I'll raise your quarter and...
Yeah, the longer this takes, the longer the meeting goes.
11:15. Okay. Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's Farmington School Board meeting. It's May 3rd. Would you all please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next, we have public participation. I don't know if we don't have anybody in person here. Jen, do we have anybody online that would like to speak?
If anyone online would like to share something with the board, please mute yourself at this time and introduce your name and either your address or your role. Thank you. No one has indicated in the chat, however.
Okay, thank you, Jen. Also, I'd like to make an announcement that this week is Teacher Appreciation Week. So, Ruth Allen, maybe you could tell the board and the community what we're doing for that.
Well, each of the buildings is celebrating a little bit differently. And the principals have been heading up those particular plans. I don't have them all in front of me, but there are pieces and bits throughout the entire week to show our teachers our appreciation, including meals being provided and just kind of fun things all through. I know that Henry Wilson was greeted this morning by a Yoda mask and a sign that said Yoda best staff. So there are things planned throughout each building. And I don't know if the principals want to jump in and do any spoiler alerts, or...
Do we have any of the principals online that would like to add any content to that?
Sure. Do I hopefully it'll sound like squirrels?
No, you're good.
Clearly.
Oh, all right. Thursday, creating a breakfast that National Honor Society is going to bring around to the teachers. The teachers have a menu that they can choose from, and we will create basically a personalized breakfast for them and deliver it starting a little bit after 7 o'clock on Thursday morning.
Oh, that sounds delicious. Anyone else?
Today,
It's Blake. Blake, we missed the first part.
What's that?
We missed the first part, Blake.
Oh, I just said Blake and Great Valley View. That's not.
Oh, okay.
The teachers got some homemade blueberry muffins today, and every day we've got a fun little surprise. On Friday, everyone's going to have a nice little luncheon with some sandwiches and chips and drinks and things like that.
Good, good.
Hi guys, it's Giselle Pomeroy and Henry Wilson. We're going with a Star Wars theme. This is the first year that I know of that Teacher Appreciation Week also fell with May the 4th, and so we're playing off of May the 4th be with you. So the whole week is just centered around Star Wars and just little treats and fun things throughout the whole week, and we'll have a lunch on Friday too. So we're trying to keep it pretty simple but fun.
Oh, good, good. Sounds like it's gonna be a fun change.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Principal Pomeroy.
I'll add.
Vice Principal Pomeroy,
Sorry.
Vice President Henry Wilson, we love him, Vice President.
That's right.
Ruth Allen is also a former educator, so we'll toss one out to her. And I think we kind of learned from her a lot anyway, so.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
I'll sit there. While we're on the subject of thanking people and appreciating efforts, on behalf of the board, I'd like to congratulate Jess Brown in finishing first in the state of New Hampshire statewide medical terminology competition. Mm-hmm. What makes that interesting is that she's not scheduled to take that class until next year. But she studied on her own, she prepared for the competition on her own. She successfully finished first place in the state.
Wow.
And that is without taking the class. Now she's off to the international competition sometime in June. And so that everybody knows, this is an extremely highly competitive process during which she went out on her own. She shined a positive light on not only herself, her teachers, and the district. So congratulations, Jess.
Yes, that's certainly.
And drove her dad nuts during the process.
Yes, she did, I'm sure.
Next on our agenda, we have meeting minutes. So we'll first start with the meeting minutes of November 9th. I'll make a motion to approve the public and non-public meeting minutes of November 9th.
Second.
Second by Tim. Discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor?
Aye.
I'm going to abstain. That was before my time.
They were.
That was before Thanksgiving.
Next, moving on to the meeting minutes of March 25th. I'll make that motion to approve the public and non-public.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Then I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes, public and non-public, of April 5th.
Second.
Any discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor?
Aye.
Also, I'd like to state that Joel Shagnon has called, and he's going to try to make it to the meeting, but may not be able to make it. But he may join us later in the meeting. And before...
We only have financial tonight. Actually, I take it back. We have student services, but we don't have curriculum tonight.
Okay, but before we get started with that, I think Larry has some stuff that he wanted to bring to the board. I think he had somewhere else he needed to be, so we want to move it up.
And you've got 2 microphones tonight, no waiting.
Larry Gordon, Facilities Director. I was asked a little while ago to try to get some information on costing for changing out the locks in all 3 schools, I believe, for all the doors so that when there's a lockdown, it's easier to lock them from the inside. This is just like a company, Oak Security Group, that did some work for us changing some locks here at the high school before. I asked them to come in and go around and do an audit and put together what it would cost for a couple different ones, a high-end option and a lower-end option. This is a sample that he brought in that would be the high-end option, which would be changing out all the door handles on 236 doors in all 3 schools.
So this total is for 236 doors?
Yes.
Because that's one thing I didn't see here, what the total
No,
quantity
it was in the email that was with it, yeah. I had it written on one of them. So basically this would be the most expensive option, that quality one, where the key, you lock it from the outside, but on the inside, if there's an emergency, you lock it, and it has the light that flashes to let people know inside that it is locked, and it remains that way until you release it. If it's locked that way, you can still unlock it from the inside, but not outside. That was that's the back sheet for the high end. Like I said, the high end. The front sheet is basically same thing, 236 doors, but most of the locks, the door handles that are still here existing, they would just change the inside cylinder, put a thumb bolt turn in it that could be locked from the inside. That's why there's so much of a price difference on it.
So on the front page, that would work out to $128 per unit installed.
Yep, and that's with the keys, with the rekeying, with the master keys for it. That would also be master keys that fit every door, would all be mastered to one key. But you could have individual keys for the teachers for just each room too, but there would be, like we have now, a master, so that administration, maintenance, fire, and everything would have one key that would fit the whole building for the interior doors.
And the second option, which you have before you, is $374 a piece.
Right, that's because if, that would be with this system, and for that, they would have to change the whole door handle. They can't just change the interior lock.
Now, that one would also have, I assume, batteries in it?
Yes.
The other, which would have to be changed periodically?
I was told that they could last up to 10 years.
Up to. Now,
Unless somebody, decided each day to lock it and leave it on all day.
So, but functionally, they're the same?
Yes, it's just, basically, this one just has this, it's more of a turn, just an easy turn with that sticks out. But
What's the
it's
other one?
also so that
Right.
somebody knows that it's locked.
And how is the lock on the other one?
It would be for any of the handles that exist, like at this school that are like this, they would just take the tumbler out, replace it.
No, I said, how would it lock?
Oh,
What's
how
the
would it lock? It
mechanism to
would be
lock it?
thumb lock.
When you say thumb lock, so it's going to be like
It's got to stick out. It wouldn't be a level like this. It would be just one you can reach and
so
turn.
you just twist it.
So how is somebody going to know when it's...
Because they're marked which way
Okay.
lock, unlock on them.
So it's readily visible
Yeah.
whether it's locked or not?
Yes.
It just doesn't have a flashing light?
Doesn't have the
Doesn't flash.
flashing and it doesn't
And in the
have
first page, they're not changing the whole
You're not changing the
just
whole
the internal?
unit. Yeah.
So it would keep the same keys. We wouldn't have to.
No, they
rekey
would
everything.
rekey it too.
Everything's
So
getting
rekey it,
rekeyed?
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what he said. So where, I guess Ruth Ellen and Brian, would these funds come from?
Might be general fund.
Either general fund or it could be under the safety and security trust fund.
If we're going to pay for the generator out of COVID money, we have $100,000 in safety and security that we can fund the locking process under safety and security.
Yeah, I mean, the second option is more than, it's almost triple. I think that it should get done. I just don't know if I can go to the Cadillac.
No, I asked him to quote
Right.
the top of the line and something different so that, just so we could see
I
the
mean,
difference.
the cost per unit installed with all the rekeying is $128, and I don't see that as being unreasonable.
No, that includes any of the bathrooms that have doors and stuff too.
Yeah.
There are a couple of other things that I can bring up, but I'll do them in non-public as far as the security piece. But I don't know that it's going to change where you're headed, just.
Discussion.
I'll make a motion that we move the discussion to non-public under safety and security.
Second?
Discussion. I guess, question for you, Larry.
Yes.
Are we able to mix and match?
Mix and match.
So say if we went with the base proposal, but in certain scenarios, we would want that in some locations?
Probably. I
Okay.
think that would be feasible. I think he'd be willing to do that, yeah.
Yeah. Because I don't know if that makes sense or not, but I assume that they would be able to do that. But depending on what it was, I think that may be, may suit in certain situations, maybe not in every room, but I don't know.
I only have
Maybe
one other question.
Go ahead.
Larry, regardless of what option we go to, the cost is over $5,000, which triggers our policy on bid. Why would we waive bid to do business with this company?
Well, this is the company, I just brought them in because they've worked with us before here. He did all the locker rooms and everything last year. It was under 5,000 to change the lock because we had locks in those doors that we could no longer get keys made for. They have a good reputation. They've been represented at the facilities conferences that we attend each year.
And your experience with them has been positive?
Yeah, Nate the person that put this together comes and basically does the installation himself too, so.
Okay.
Okay, so there was a motion to table it to non-public under safety and security. Any other discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So I think we've got everything we need, Larry, and Ruth Ann will let you know.
All right,
Thanks for coming in.
thank you. Do you mind if I just give them these copies too? This is for the exterior doors, just
That's
while
fine.
we're.
Is there something else you want to talk about?
Yeah, I'd like to.
Go ahead.
Got,
Those are for interior doors, now he's giving you the
yeah,
exteriors.
these are exterior three exterior doors for Henry Wilson that really need to be replaced. They're, the frames are rusting out on them.
And we would likely include those under the ESER.
Yeah, they would
for
come
next
under,
week.
because I checked with DOE, that exterior doors, windows, anything like that can come under air quality and can be used, ESSA funds can be used for them.
This is a complete door replacement.
It's a complete door frame. They're aluminum doors that would replace the steel that we have. At the bottom frames on all three of them, they're pretty well rusted out. We have one in one area that we actually have sprayed expansion foam in to try to keep things out of.
So these are equipped with, it says concealed panic devices, electronic panic.
These three doors are already have the panic devices on them. They have existing card readers on them.
So those be taking off and put on these doors?
Yes,
So are these double doors?
yes.
Okay, so this is a double door.
One's down by the cafeteria, the wood shop, the old wood shop, the art room now. The other one would be on the back side of the cafeteria for the playground, and the other one is at the back of the building for the 5th grade hall now.
My only
Go ahead.
question is, if we're going to fund this through ESER, is the labor charges in here at prevailing wage? Or are these prices going to change?
They may go up because I think when we got the quote from it, I got the estimate from it, I had all doors and locks come in, and I don't believe that they quoted it at prevailing wage then.
How long will that take to get? Can you have it by next Monday?
Yeah.
I'm going to make a motion to table till Monday based on the updated estimate with prevailing wage.
Well, is there a second for the motion?
Second.
I'm wondering if we're going to table it, do we go out to our other people that we may have used in the past, whether it be Grand State Glass, you said some other lock and door.
This is a quote from All Door and Lock.
Okay. But
They,
other people that we've used to quote a competitor product and also state that we need to follow Davis Bacon wages. But I think that would, if we're going to delay it, then I would like to at least give them an opportunity to quote by a deadline and be, say, our next meeting, and if they don't, then we have the bids that we would have. But that would keep us on track with our quoting policy, make sure that they quoting Davis and Bacon wages, and we at least can look at other options. That's just my thought, but the motion is to table till,
Next.
Well, I'll take that as a friendly amendment, that we table it till however long Larry thinks it's going to take to get 3 written quotes, and if that's 2 weeks, we give you 2 weeks, but
Yeah, I'll have to call I'll have to get somebody on it right away because
Yeah.
we're running into the time crunch of getting things ordered and stuff. What it will
I
take.
would say 2 weeks at the max. If they don't quote by then, they don't get considered.
Well, because we've got the workshop next week on the ESER fund, so I would put in then a kind of a holding ballpark amount for the doors if we're looking at
Yes.
in general,
I
so
don't
that
certainly
we've got
have a problem
placeholder.
put it as a placeholder. This is a problem,
Right.
because chances are would be
Well-
this somehow, potentially a little bit less, but.
But we're also getting close as far as being able to schedule the work to be done this summer. If we wait much longer, we're not gonna get it done before school's back in session.
So that was, your motion was amended by that friendly amendment for 2 weeks?
Is it gonna take you 2 weeks to get 3 quotes? If you can do it in a week, it would be favorable to do
I
it
don't
in
have a
week.
problem with just getting it with not to exceed 2 weeks, and then if he gets it to us by next meeting, we can do it then.
I can get a hold of Granite State, have them do it. I'll have to look up, we haven't dealt, that's the only 2 companies we've dealt with in the past since I've been here, is Granite State and All Doors and Locks.
Yeah, I
could
don't
call
know who else,
Portland Glass too, I suppose.
I don't know who else would typically do
There's
this.
a locksmith in Dover Locksmith, I think it is, that you might be able to get a third price from.
Yeah, I think it's more, the biggest thing is got to do with the doors itself.
Yeah.
Because that's a commercial industrial door.
Well, yeah,
so it's,
as far as
Getting it over.
rehooking the panic buttons, the electronic ones, that would be the security companies that we use now,
Yeah.
OneSource and Seacoast Security.
Seacoast, yeah.
Because it's their equipment that's in the doors now.
Right. Any other discussion? Not hearing any, all in favor?
Aye.
So, yeah, just get it back to us as soon as you can. You might not be able to get 3, but if you get 2, it's better than 1. And like I said, make sure that they,
Prevailing wages.
prevailing wages.
Okay.
Moving on next to. Thank you, Larry. Moving on to student services for reports.
Hi, thank you very much. Joining you remotely today, hopefully to be back there next week. I did put in my report for this evening a reminder of our first annual Farmington High School Job Fair and Career Expo, which is coming up Friday, the 21st of May. From 1 to 5 p.m., it's going to be held outside. We have developed COVID protocols to go along with that. So we've already got a number of businesses that have confirmed. We've got some food trucks coming, so if you come by and also want to get some dinner, that'll be a possibility. So I also want to send a big thank you to the staff that have been working on this: Angela DePalma, Cara Adams, John Giles, Katie Sauer, Kate O'Brien, Mr. Roberts, and Mr. Larkham. And Jess Lovell has been part of our group as well. So I want to thank them all for the hard work they've been putting into this. In addition, I just kind of did a little bit of thinking out loud with some resources thrown in there regarding what fall of 2021 might bring for Farmington and also just education in general. Clearly, there was a major benefit to Farmington. We were able to move through grant money to a one-to-one model for technology, which is really exciting. Clearly, also, we're thinking a lot, had a meeting, in fact, today, about students and what their academic abilities are going to look like coming back in the fall for those that have, chosen to be remote for a considerable period of time. And how we set ourselves up to address those individual issues. Part of what I've heard a little bit of discussion about doesn't mean that's what Farmington is going to do, but, looking at the theory of multi-age groupings, if we have some students who are advanced in 3rd grade, but some are behind, can we combine a 2-3 grade? Not that it's something we have to do, but maybe it's something we think about for the future. Nationwide, it's believed there's going to be an increase in the number of kindergarten students that we might be seeing, that families perhaps chose to keep kids out of kindergarten for that year. Of course, at the age of 6, public education is compulsory, or some type of education is compulsory. And that potentially we might see a growth in our kindergarten program. And we've certainly had a wide range of abilities in our kindergarten program, so we have every reason to expect that that's going to continue. Thoughts about grading? What does grading look like? As we, talked a lot as a district, about what do we want to really hold our kids accountable for. Going to online learning was a big switch for everybody, and it kind of really made all schools think about what are the things we really want students to demonstrate, as opposed to it being maybe doing every single assignment you might have planned to do. What are the things we really want them to be able to show? Obviously, too, that figures into our assessments and our accountability system for students. And also that'll have a lot to do with our learning management system that we pull together and how that will be working for us. As we move forward into the post-pandemic years, and hopefully we're getting there really soon, there'll be some interesting things to consider, and what will the state of New Hampshire education programs play in this, those people that are the leaders for us. So just some thoughts on paper there. I also made a couple notes. We have 2 more school districts that have joined the Conville case. And just a reminder that, this had to do with the adequate funding of public education in New Hampshire. And a note that we have 3 special education teachers who are going to participate in Orton Gillingham training. This is a reading approach that is very popular and used quite regularly with students who struggle with reading. It's meant to kind of give strategies for explicitly teaching students connections between letters and sounds. The approach has been around for quite a while. It also uses a multi-sensory approach in terms of, you might have a young child who's tracing the shape in shaving cream, slowing the sound, drawing the sound, in order to kind of really develop a sense for a letter. So we're really thrilled to be sending 3 people to that. We're doing it through our grant. That would be Cara Adams, Sarah Masio, and Michelle Vachon. So I thank them for stepping up and being willing to learn about this program. Also wanted to say a fond farewell and thank you to Deli Pute-Wright, who has been with us in the district for 15 years. She has been at Valley View, and she's been just a blessing to have. She taught primarily grades 2 and 3. She's worked summer programming for us for many years. She won't be with us this summer, however. And she's just had a great commitment to all the students that she's worked with. So I will miss her terribly. And also Kathy Stiros, and for over 30 years, Kathy's been with this district, and I could not find a photo of her. So I have a little Bitmoji there that represents her. She's been a member of the Farmington community in the Farmington School District, as I said, for over 30 years. She's been very valuable in terms of her experience as a speech-language pathologist. She works primarily with students at Henry Wilson and at the high school, although she does do some evaluations at the elementary school when needed. And she's been with us for the summer program regularly as well. And she's going to be tough to replace, but certainly won't forget her. So wanted to make a special mention of those 2 ladies. And summer programming is coming soon, July 12th through the 30th, from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Valley View will be open for pre-K through 3rd grade, and then the other 2 programs, Henry Wilson and the high school, will be run at Farmington High School. Because we'll be having some building work done over at Henry Wilson. So that's my report for tonight. I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Tim?
Just want to put a plug out on the summer school for the people that might have missed our last meeting. There is a plan in place for before and after summer school care, correct, Ruth Ellen?
Yes,
And that'll be a sliding scale based on income?
Yes,
Okay.
and that's, that information is on our Facebook page, and if you call the Farmington Learning Center, they can also give you more information.
Great.
Anyone else with any questions?
On the annual job fair, has there been any outreach to businesses, local businesses, to participate?
Yeah, there has been. And if you've got somebody that we haven't reached out to, please do, by all means, let us know. We'd love to, have all, anyone that's interested in coming, have a space. So if Mr. Whitehouse, if we missed somebody, please do let us know.
Gotcha. And thank you to Angela De Palma and Cara Adams for putting that together.
Yeah, they've been fantastic. They've really taken the lead on this, and we appreciate that.
So how many businesses do we have that have committed to come May 21st, 1 to 5 p.m.?
Cara items is on here as well, and I'm sure Angela's listening too, but I'm gonna say we have at least 15 that have committed, and we have at least 2 food trucks coming. Cara, you're more than welcome to unmute yourself and correct me if I'm wrong. But that's where we were as of our last meeting. We do meet again tomorrow.
Okay, it's good to
We
hear.
have almost 32 at this point.
Wow.
And letters went out today, so people are confirming left and right, and there'll be a big meeting tomorrow because we have 64 in contact. We're just waiting on formal confirmation, so moving right along.
That is amazing. Thank you so much, Cara.
Okay, thank you. Anyone with any other questions? Well, thank you, Diana. Next, under financial.
Nothing too exciting this month, although if you look at the summary sheet, your anticipated available balance, which is your fund balance, is at $1,035,200.62. So we are holding the line on our fund balance.
Question?
Go ahead, Tim.
I'm just going to zoom up, but I don't have my glasses on. Brian, it looks like under our normal Fund 10, we've got a balance of $400,766 for the rest of the year. I kind of look back a couple of months. What is the average we're spending per month? Is that $400,000 going to carry us through to the end of June?
That's encumbered.
Yeah, that's encumbered funds you're looking at. It's the difference. I've manually encumbered on the summary sheet, but not in the system. So, but our cash flow right now, our burn rate is slow enough that it's not going to affect it.
About $180,000 a month, would you estimate, or?
Probably less than that, probably 120.
Okay, so we're in good shape.
Yeah.
We're in good
Okay,
Between 120 and 130 is an average.
perfect.
Anyone with any other questions?
Thank Brian for spending more time driving to our budget committee meeting than we actually participated. I think we set a record.
That's a good sign, though.
It is a good sign.
Moving along into old business, we have a policy JICD, second read, and that policy is regarding,
This is the student discipline and due process policy that we need to have formalized so that we can then in turn start the code of conduct, both of which need to be in place for July 1. This was the easy part. The next part is going to be considerably more involved. The changes that were suggested during the first read are included. And that was the Saturday school or detention and
Why is the Saturday detention only limited to high school students?
it doesn't have to be. That can be changed.
I'd like to strike the high school and just limit that students may be assigned a Saturday detention. I don't expect that this will be a popular or well-used tool at our elementary school, but I think certainly it may have some benefit at our middle school and high school.
yeah, I
So
don't
should I
think,
just put during such detention, students will be required to remain at school on Saturday mornings?
yeah.
And then
Yep.
middle or high school students?
I mean, I would leave it to all three buildings. You may have a rare case in the elementary school, and I wouldn't like to be able to use the tool at the discretion of the principal. I just, I think it's a,
Okay, so the
Administrative
students may
call.
be assigned.
yep.
Okay.
Anyone else with any proposed changes?
I'll make a motion to approve as amended.
Second.
Any discussion? Not hearing any, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes.
Thank you.
Next, we have,
So we have the data governance and security. This policy is required to be reviewed annually. It doesn't mean that there needs to be a change, but it is required to be reviewed. And then you have in there, and this was updated today because I inadvertently posted the wrong version, so that is my fault.
so the version that was in last week's packet was
was incorrect.
Okay.
So the one that's in the folder now is correct. And I do have a
And
printed
what
copy.
what are the changes?
This is actually a report that was notes. So I printed the notes, I posted the notes version as opposed to the report version. So this one is fleshed out. The other was the basis for.
So was there any substantial changes to this based upon when it was last
As far
adopted
as the,
in the last year?
as far as the policy, there's been no changes made.
Okay.
As far as the improvement, this just kind of, here's the things that
Right.
we've done in terms of compliance for that. So this is the report, and then this needs to be voted with an update. It can be a first read, but each year we need to have before the end of the fiscal year to say, yes, it's been readopted.
So other things that we want to go through in this report? Mary?
On the technology report, item 2B, it
And
talks
this is
about...
probably where Jen wants to jump into as
Okay.
well. Yep.
Feel free, Jen. So you're talking about district policies, KD?
KD and KDR?
Yeah, my question about it was, is it, as I'm reading it, it appears to be brought to the board awaiting approval.
Correct. Those have not been formally redone. There was kind of a hold placed on. So still in, and those will be brought back for the next meeting. We were.
Now, on that point, I think we had some concerns regarding some social media here, and the board had cut back some of our
Correct.
our social media content.
Correct.
Are we going to be reviewing that and considering changes to that at the same time?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
Is it coming out of policy committee?
I don't know.
Policy committee will need to review it first.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I know we made
Policy
some.
committee be looking for it.
Okay, we can do that.
Yeah, because I know we had some concerns voiced by the board, and we had curtailed some things just to make sure that we could review it in a more, timely
manner.
fashion with, so I think that would be a good opportunity to do that at the same time.
Because prior to it hitting the policy committee, I'd like some feedback from the building administrators to the policy committee on what they see or what they would like to see as well. I know at one time Blake made a comment wanting to reinstitute some of the stuff we were doing in the past. While we curtailed the use of the social media, have they run into obstacles? Has it been an obstacle for them? What do we need to change? What's
Yeah.
worked, what's not worked, et cetera? So I'd like feedback,
Okay. Yep.
not just us, but I'd like their feedback into...
Sure.
All relevant staff for them. Jen would be probably a good one to reach out to as well.
Well, she's part of admin, so.
Now, during this report, I reviewed it last week, and I just looked at this one, assuming it was the same, but now, we had, under the software that we use, it talks about account of DPA status, and,
That's the data privacy agreement.
right, data privacy agreement. So we have some vendors that were either unresponsive, declined, or are these vendors that were still using their product?
So we do not use the product until we have the
Okay.
DPA in hand.
Okay, so,
Jen, did you want to jump in?
Right, so if we do not have a DPA in hand, or if we are not actively working towards one, if they are just unresponsive, then that is a product that we do not use.
okay,
Most of these are tools that are Chrome apps or Chrome extensions, so we just do not have them in the allowable list for students. And once they are approved, then we add them to the allowable list for the students. Often it's because some of these vendors just don't have the legal resources, or they simply can't comply to the privacy standards. Some will not do not have a way to remove data or present data if asked to, and have students' data removed. And these are important things that we need to have in place to protect our students' information. So if they are not responsive or they're not approved, we do not put them in the allowed list, and we block them for student use.
Okay, thank you. Well, another question on that. How many are we currently working with as far as getting to that DPA approval? What is that rough number? Is it 2, or is it 20? Is it?
So you can see on the list can you see the chart on the one that was shared with you?
Yeah.
I put the exact numbers for you, and that number changes because the teachers have been excellent about submitting the tools and checking up on them. They've really taken to this. I really have to say, with everything going on with COVID, they've been really good about it. So at this time, you can see that the numbers of new requests that we currently have are right around 30. In fact, that's kind of increased to 35. Some that are pending, they're about like 3. So that number's constantly evolving, but I did put a chart with numbers on there just to give you a rough.
So on the new request where you're saying there's 35, what typically is the time frame that it takes to get those agreements in place? The average?
You know, it really depends on the vendor. We are very lucky that we have this consortium. We work with other districts. First thing is the teachers will go to the consortium website, and they will see if there's a tool already there approved that is meeting the objective of what they're looking for, so that expedites the process a lot. If not, and they submit a request, we instantly send it to the legal resources of the consortium, and then they go right to the vendor. It's really where it sits on the vendor side that the time can take the most, because it depends on how responsive they are. Do they have legal resources? Do they even respond? And we constantly reach out, and I let the teachers know that if we don't hear back, it's okay for them to contact as well and say, hey, this is, our district is trying to use your tool. Here's an email that you can use so that we can have this approved. And sometimes they've been able to help push it through, and I've done the same thing. I've contacted vendors directly and said, here's what we need, here is why. All the districts, I think we're at 90, I can't remember the exact percentage of how many districts go through the consortium in New Hampshire, but we've partnered up with Massachusetts and Connecticut, and it behooves the vendors to work at getting these DPAs in place. And sometimes it really pushes them through, but sometimes it's up to the vendor on their response time.
Okay, the other question I had was, there was some discussion, Jen, about potentially increasing our bandwidth. Maybe it was just at this board level. Do we have anything currently that we're asking vendors for in regarding of that? I know of some discussion maybe from the Learning Loss Committee or some stuff like that. I guess, is there anything that's kind of in the works now for requests from those service providers?
Can you clarify? I'm so sorry, Charlie. Can you clarify that question?
Well, there was talk or discussion from this board about potentially increasing our bandwidth to aid in here to be paid. What's that? Go ahead.
It was 10 gig. It was a recommendation that the board approved out of learning loss to increase the bandwidth in the district to 10 gigabytes.
So I guess, have we done anything with that as far as at least started that preliminary discussion with them, or?
Right, so we have done some things already. For instance, one of the additional circuits from Atlantic Broadband is actually in at the high school, and we set up so that we have failover rules that allow that Valley View uses that circuit at all times, and it goes down, they use First Light or other circuit as their failover. The high school goes the other way. The high school uses First Light primary, and if First Light was to go down, then they use Atlantic Broadband secondary. That way it does load balancing as well as failover. We are in the process of doing the same thing right now at Henry Wilson. We have to move a firewall, and we were working on that last week. We were doing all the updates to the firewalls before we move it. We're going to move it to where we have a new circuit put in at the SAU so that we can have load balancing at Henry Wilson as well. and that's the next step.
That needs
So-
to happen before the next step to the bandwidth can come up.
Okay.
Correct. And then I've spoken with Ruth Ellen about planning for infrastructure upgrades that would be capable of things like Wi-Fi 6, which allows for taking multiple requests from multiple clients at the same time. It's not just about increasing speed, but increasing the amount of multiple requests you can take from multiple clients. And with our one-to-one program and our synchronous video learning, that would be a huge game changer.
So in order to do that.
So
there's-
Wi-Fi 6 is a new
Wi-Fi 6
Wi-Fi standard?
We would need to go with most of ours are at 5.
It's 802.11ax, and it allows for taking multiple requests from multiple clients at higher speeds. And then things, I've also spoken with her about looking forward to smart rate switches that can handle high speed and higher throughput for both power and bandwidth. Because some of these access points require a lot more power. And so sometimes I either have to use 2 ports to power them or a port injector, or smart rate switches can handle this right up.
Because if we were to increase from where we are now to 10 gig and leave the infrastructure at the same place, it's not going to be able to handle the traffic.
No, yeah, that's understood, well, at least to me.
So I have gotten quotes on what smart rate switches, I'm looking at HP Aruba right now, only because that's what we have in place. It doesn't mean that you have to. I like that I'm able to work with HP or Cisco, and it's fine, but because we have primarily HP Aruba, those are the primary quotes that I have already. And I provided those to Ruth Ellen just for planning at this point.
Okay, thank you, Jen. Anyone, any other questions?
Where are we on the teacher's laptop bids? Are those closed yet or gone out?
The teacher's laptop bids,
Still coming together. I'll have it next week.
Are you looking for a motion on old business item B, data governance?
EHAB? EHAB?
Data governance and security?
EHAB, yes, I am looking for a motion to
Do we renew it?
renew it. But it says adopted twice here, it really should be renewed.
I'll make a motion to renew.
Second?
Any discussion? Not hearing any, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next on old business, we have lighting upgrade.
And this was so that you could table. This was the lighting upgrade piece in light of DRA,
Yeah.
and you had wanted
So, to kind of recap where we were at, we had put a warrant article before the taxpayers. We made a change on the floor based upon recommended change by our council, and under DRA review, they feel that it is not what is correct. That be the best term?
it would be disallowed.
Disallowed. So, so for us, I mean, we have a couple things we could consider. My thoughts after some of these issues that we're presented with, plus with all the other things we have to deal with, I'm inclined to tabling it till next year because we have some facility upgrades that we need to attend to, and this does not qualify, would not qualify under ESSER 2 or ESSER 3.
Correct.
So, as far as priorities go, even though I think it's something we need to do, I think the other priorities would be to getting done the things that would qualify under the ESSER 2 and ESSER 3.
Better use of the town.
Right. So I'll make a motion to table until consideration for warrant articles next year.
Second.
Any other discussion? Not hearing any, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next, on new business, we have job descriptions for review. First one is an IT technician. I guess my first question is this the...
That's actually the student information IT associate that you see there in the folder.
Okay.
I saw both.
The Director of Technology Services was in there, as was the student information IT, which was the technician position.
So which one are we discussing first?
Well, either you had asked for the descriptions to take
Okay.
a look at, so, and I don't know if those are ones that you're looking to change now. If you wanted to do them as a read, I included them so that you would have them.
Okay, so on the student information, okay. Student information IT, now this is,
This is the position that had been, or the other tech position that had been included in the budget for next year.
right. So this is a position that we already have filled in one of our buildings?
We have one technician now.
Is this the same
This
job
would be the
description for that?
It is slightly different because this position would be overseeing the student information system in addition to those other tech pieces. One is more network, the other would be the SIS piece,
SIS piece
student
being,
information system.
which would be considered a higher level of requirements for the position?
Not necessarily. It's a divergence of the skill set. I don't know that it's a higher level.
More data driven.
It's more data-driven than it would be, but it's not the data
Hands-on with
manager.
data.
It's more the management of the whole
The information.
system and the backbone of that, probably also including part of the learning management piece.
But
So-
just as far as installation, make sure that stays running.
Yes,
Not-
yes.
not
It's
utilizing, right.
Right, it's not feeding it data, it's keeping the data flowing.
And being able to pull the information out that we need.
Yes.
To report to the state.
Making the reports, doing the, building the SQL reports in the background so that we can pull things out of it. Making it pretty.
Okay,
So-
discussion. Tim?
So if it's a data-driven position, how many boots in the ground do we have for support when a teacher has a problem in the classroom? And what is our...
This would be part of that as well. I mean, this isn't just doing
So
that
it's-
system.
So it's tech support within our business, within our buildings, plus a higher...
Or say a
combination-
specialty.
Combination of a specialized
Yes.
job function as well,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, it definitely has to have boots on the ground with working with staff and working with that troubleshooting piece as well. But making sure that we have somebody coming in here who has the background to be able to do that
Other piece.
database management piece. Not everybody, they may build a server, but they may not be looking at, digging 8 layers down into PowerSchool to figure out why this report keeps coming out in funky characters.
So this is a new job description for us.
This is a new job description, yes.
So at this point, you'd be looking for us to consider this, approve it, or amend it?
Correct, because at this point, I don't have the position that has been budgeted posted because I need a job description to attach to it. I could just replicate the one that I have, but we are looking for somebody with this skill set as well.
So discussion on this from the board.
I've got discussion, but I think I'm going to have to move it into non-public because I think one of the discussions we had is sealed. So I guess, how quick do you need an answer on these job descriptions? Can we act on them next week?
We could, at this point in the game, the longer I wait to post, but I need to have a job description to post, so.
Yeah, for me, I'm okay with it as written. I think that we have time to amend it because it could be that we post this, and then if the board or other people want to consider making amendments based upon our refining of this before we hire a person. This is the scope, this is the area that you want their expertise to be in. So whether the nuances of their day-to-day working environment changes slightly, it could be in draft form right up until we find a suitable candidate.
We could post it as a draft as well.
Because we may find even in hiring somebody with a skill set that's not exactly this, but we feel would be a good fit, and then we can work it in with the other skill sets that we have. So
That is true.
saying it's cast in stone, you know, it may be modified based upon a candidate who we feels has other skills that we could utilize. But that's just a thought for me. Mary, you had something?
No. Well, just-
Josh?
I mean, I only have a couple clerical issues, but they can be worked out later, right?
Okay, yeah.
But I'm certainly not opposed to tabling any discussion if we need to in a non-public. Is that what your motion? Or no?
Yeah, I've got one issue that I want to bring forward, but I want to make sure I don't step on sealed minutes.
We can do that.
But I'm okay with what Charlie's saying on the job descriptions. But I would like to have that follow-up conversation in non-public under personnel.
Okay. So on the IT director?
You had asked for the position description to take a look at.
Right.
And I think that may go into part of where Tim was headed.
Yeah. Yeah. Job descriptions. That was in the subdirectory job description request.
Yep.
Now, if we back up to the IT technician position, you also included some wage study?
That was a larger wage study as
wage scale.
we're getting ready to look at a number of different positions. You had kind of asked for some comps. And so
Did that position, when you drafted this position for the IT technician, did you have a pay scale in mind? From your wage
well, what we
study?
had in mind is what we budgeted.
Okay.
But we may need to look at as far as prevailing wage, and that was partly why I put things up in there to just kind of give you some comps across area as we're looking at, who's our competition and what are they paying. But not necessarily looking to make wild shifts right now. We've got some discussions to be had as far as a number of positions and where those may fall out with particularly non-negotiated raises. And so in part, that information was there for you to kind of start processing, and I will bring forward recommendations, but I wanted you to kind of have where I was pulling the numbers from. It wasn't just from the air. So.
Okay. Next we had on the list was curriculum director.
Right, as that position is one that I also need to be posting.
Right.
Wanted to make sure that you were fine with current position description so that I can post that.
So in those, the IT director and curriculum director, do you see any changes that need to be made to the job description?
At this point, I'm not looking for major changes. I think there's a greater level of detail that in the curriculum in particular that could go in, but this is a broad overview. There's a whole lot more that position ends up doing, having done it myself. The other duties as assigned is the part that's kind of the much bigger piece. But in general, this covers the broad strokes.
Okay. So I'm going to make a motion to approve the job descriptions as written for the purpose of job posting.
Okay. And so should I wait to post
Hold on.
until you see those?
Hold on, we got to see if the motion passes.
I'll
Is there a
second that. I'll second it for discussion.
Discussion. Yeah, my purpose is to basically, if we don't see any major changes, it should be okay to post for when this board decides that they will be posted. And then changes could be made as we get a little closer to hiring a person in
Well,
those scenarios.
So here's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Administrators' positions are going now.
Right.
And so am I waiting to post? That's my question.
What I think Charlie's saying is, by his motion, is use this copy of the job description to post for now.
Okay. all right.
Subsequent to hiring and coming up with a contract, we may want to tweak something on a contract, but use this as your means for posting.
Thank you for translating. I appreciate that.
Sorry.
I speak Charlie.
I'm learning.
It's not going to get you very far.
I do have a question.
All right, thank you.
I do have a question under the curriculum coordinator, though, or maybe I'm all wet, but where are we on the learning management system process as far as selecting a vendor, and whose ultimate responsibility is that going to be?
We have 2 recommendations that have been brought forward from the committees now.
Yep. I saw that, yep.
I have those now.
They were in our folder 2 weeks ago.
Yes, they
Yep,
were.
Yep.
And so I would say, mine or ours together to say, here's final recommendation.
Yeah, I think I had that
And
on
I
my...
was looking to do that as part of the workshop next week.
Okay.
Because you had asked for all
Sure.
things
Yeah,
ESER
because I had it
together.
on my list today to ask
Yeah.
about it.
But from a job description perspective, because I think that's going to be key if we hire a curriculum coordinator, where does that overall supervision of that process lie? Is it going to be with him
It's
or
huge.
her?
Basically, it's with these 2 positions. We cannot put in a learning management system without an IT director and a curriculum coordinator to be
Okay,
getting that backbone built this summer.
So as we're looking at that process of recruiting, is within the job description that process shared between those 2 positions? Have we thought about where
It would
that's
have
going to
to be.
fall?
It would have to be. And
So that's one of the changes within the draft that you're going to have to look at
Right.
before we...
And where that falls, I mean, there's a pretty solid line of demarcation as far as one is the data backbone and one is the IT
Yep.
network piece of
Yep.
it. But yeah, that is going to be a process that at this point, if it's not really getting started until July 1, it's September is not going to be an absolute go-live date.
No, I'm not saying that, but if we're in the hiring process,
Oh, it has to be part of the discussion.
it has to be part of this, and that may be something that during the interview process, you want to look at for experience.
Absolutely.
So as we're posting this, under responsibilities, do you add in some type of short language that they'll be responsible for the administration of the curriculum portion of the learning management system, or something
Right.
to that effect?
Set up an implementation, which is more
Yeah.
than even just administering.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
So any other discussion on which is on the motion, which is to approve these for posting? Not hearing any. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Moving on to our next agenda item, which is superintendent evaluation. I know
So-
we had some, go ahead.
Yep, I had given you an example, a couple of the director of people personnel with that job description and what it looked like. So then put in both the description as it was approved back in 16. This is the job description for my position. And then if you were to use that job description as the evaluation instrument, what that could look like. Because this is pretty much what I have done with the job descriptions of my other administrators to do the first evaluative piece. And then I write a narrative that goes with that anything that I score either above effective or below effective, effective, okay. But if it's better than that or it's lower than that, I'm going to give an example of why. Why does it score higher, or why does it need improvement?
So this evaluation is your self-scoring?
So this is if, no, I haven't scored it. If you were going to adopt one that looks like that, this is what it could look like based on
This is
the
based
job
on the job
description that's current. Again, this isn't a have to, this is, you said, what could it look like?
Yep.
Here's what it could look like.
And where is that, Ruth Ellen?
That is in the folder under job descriptions. There's a job descriptions, and I think there's another job descriptions and pay. And I have printed copies if that would be easier.
I get job description and wages.
I've seen it, but I
Okay, I'll pass it.
It's under,
Job description requested. Yeah, I've got it.
so, the only thing that I see,
They go together.
Yeah.
There's one, one's the evaluation, one's the description.
so, anybody want a written copy? So, the only thing I saw, and I don't have an issue doing that, except for the only thing I thought could be added would be a section under each in the evaluation for notes, which a board member may want to put notes in to say in the performance criteria B is support policy and strive to improve, whereas somebody could either give, say, a high rating or low rating, but wants to give some written additional information.
Well, and that's when I do this for my administrators, I put in the number, but then at the end of that description, I type in color, here's what it is. So if it's a positive, it goes in this color. If it's a negative, it goes in that color.
So you're putting it all at the bottom? You're putting it all at the bottom where the narrative is?
I put my comments in with the numbers, and then the narrative, I kind of do a full summation of,
So are you
here's
putting,
what I see.
so are you putting comments directly under each item?
Yes,
Okay.
yep.
See, right now you don't have the room for that.
I don't.
So if I was to take,
I would give it to you in Word, and you could expand it as much as you
Okay.
want.
because I think in some of these, it would be good to have individual board members feedback on
Sure.
where they feel it's appropriate.
Yeah.
Somebody may say, this is good, this is not good, and there's going to be a diversity of opinion, but you want some context with it.
Sure.
So if that's the case, I will make my own blanks. Go ahead.
Under the New Hampshire administrative rules, there's a significant amount of duties required of a superintendent of schools. When I'm looking at your evaluation format, how does the material in the evaluation kind of coincide with what those administrative duties are? Because aren't some of those administrative duties, I mean, are they in here in different words? But, I mean, shouldn't
Some
we
of them
be...
are in different words. This was pulled together just before I came in, and it was my understanding, and Joel could probably speak to it better, was that it was done in conjunction with, I don't know if it was the School Boards Association that they pulled a job description from, or if it was from one of the other state, or if it was
So-
NHSAA.
So with that in mind, what's your opinion of this material? Do you think this is what we should be evaluating you on as a board, or do you think we could produce a better document, or do you think it sufficiently covers the administrative duties required by DOE? You know, what's your feedback on the process?
I've seen a number of different evaluative instruments. I think this could work. Do I think it's the cleanest document you could have? Probably not. Because of the number of duties, I don't think you're going to get a nice, succinct document.
Well, could one of the documents be, you know, does the superintendent meet the requirements of the DOE
Ed 306.
Ed 306?
Straight down. You could put it that way. I think probably you'd have to have a copy of Ed 306 attached to it,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
then is, you know, there's a lot to it. So,
But we also know, Ed, or at least I do from reviewing the administrative
Right.
rules, I know what the administrative rules are, and I look at them often, so,
I mean, we could do the same thing with the administrative rules and put evaluation slots next to those as well. I think what this does is it takes some of those ed rules and makes them more applicable to the workings of the district as opposed to just the administrative rule.
I'm not saying change it, I'm more looking
Yeah.
for your opinion.
Comfort level?
On the evaluation process. Is this the way, in your mind as superintendent, you've seen the other instruments, is this the direction, in your opinion, that we should be going?
I think the direction that we should go is the one that is going to give the board the best vehicle for feedback, to me. I've seen a number of different permutations of the board have said, this is the way we want to give you feedback. Okay, I want the feedback. If this is the instrument that's easier for people to communicate that to me, I'm okay with that. If there's a better way for somebody to do that, I'm not hung up on the piece of paper. I want the feedback.
I think this provides a pretty good outline, and then we can fill the gaps with the narrative portion.
Okay. So I guess, I guess my next step that I'm going is, your contract starts July 1. At what point do we evaluate you? Is, if we go 6 months,
Is there time to fix something?
yeah, I mean, is that a long time? I mean, do we go quarterly? Do we coincide your evaluation with report cards? And the one thing that
I get a report card.
and the one thing I talked about before that I think the board needs to do is, within non-public, under personnel, I think we need to commit monthly time for superintendent communications under personnel. And it's kind of an informal communication so that when we come to, if we do quarterly or however this board decides to set it, then there's no surprises. And, I mean, that's my outlook.
I think part of it too, to do the whole instrument each quarter, because there's a very cyclical nature to what happens throughout the school year.
Yep.
Budgeting is very much, August to November, it's right here. You budget all year. And there's certainly, but it's which part of the budget process are you evaluating when you say the budget?
Well,
And so,
the freezes.
well, and there's that too. So I guess part of it too is determining which portions are you going to do.
I'm okay with 6-month evaluations if that makes the process easier, but I think as a board, informally, I think we have to discipline ourselves as a board and set that 15 minutes a month under personnel for board communications with the superintendent so that I know where you stand, you know where we stand, and it just continues, it's good communication, it continues the process. I think we do that informally, but I'd like to get it formal so that we get busy, things get pushed aside, and that's not fair to you.
And as the meetings go to
Midnight, it's just
between, I know we do ours, is between January and February, and the reason why we do it by the end of February is because there's an election in March, and you don't want to have the evaluation go into a different board that hasn't been able to see the superintendent in action. So, generally that 6 to 8 month window is pretty common across the board.
6 months, that means September and February?
No, 6 months from July 1st.
Okay.
should be.
So you've got January, February. By the time March 1st comes around, you should have the evaluation done.
So are you doing an end of the year second one, or are you doing one evaluation per year?
We kind of do it March to March, only because we try to do it before a new board would come on.
Yep.
So, because we have caught ourselves going into April because things get busy, but the board never changed, so it wasn't that big of a deal, but now we're trying to get a little more disciplined, like you said. And that's usually when we decide to renew at that point, usually by March 1st, or extend, or whatever we're planning on doing.
What's our contract require for renewal notice with you? Is it the same as the teachers, or is it prior to?
Either part, it's not a date, it's either party can choose to walk away from the contract with 40 days' notice. if I were not going to renew, I need to give you 40 days notice. If you're not going to renew me, I would need at least 40 days notice. It would be nice to have more than that. But there's not a hard and fast date set like teachers and principals in the RSA. Superintendents do not have the same protections built in that the others do.
So do we pick for the purpose of remembering like a Valentine's Day date for her evaluation?
Flowers?
They might be black, but we'll give you flowers.
Yeah, if they're dead, it's not a good sign.
I mean, I certainly don't disagree with any of the discussion. I guess I want to back up a little bit to get this moving forward. You know, I assume it's public knowledge that we have renewed your contract. And I don't know how this typically goes on, and people just comes through osmosis.
Facebook.
Well, I'm not on Facebook anymore, so that's why I didn't get the message. But, you know, we have renewed Ruth Ellen's contract for another year, and we're trying to finish up with her evaluation formally, so it'll be part of the written record. And I think this board needs to get that done sooner than later. So I'm okay with using this format and proceeding with it, and because I think we need to do this, formalize this as a board, and then move on to the other thing we need to formalize, which is her goals for this year, which she's given us a draft of, and I think that would potentially come after we complete this evaluation as a board members and give it to her collectively. So I guess discussing with the board, when does the board members feel that they can get this done?
Using this format.
I'm okay with using the format, because I think if we add notes into each section where each member feels it appropriate, that content that Ruth Ellen will be looking for will be captured.
And I can send it to you in Word so that you can add to it. I'm not sure if it's in there in Word or if it's in PDF. It may be in PDF. I can switch that out.
I mean, I'd like to put the pressure on to say, can you guys get it done for the next meeting?
Sure.
But I guess I want to ask a question with that. Are we going to provide the superintendent with 5 individual evaluations? And
you know, I know in some of the discussion before, I had made mention of, you know, when I was a selectman, how we had done it, where we had the content and then the chair would summarize. But I can do that or not do that, and I think that it's important that all board members' discussion goes through to Ruth Ellen. So in some ways, a summary from the chair really isn't required, because collectively, some of that information is going to disagree. You may have one member that says she does an excellent job at policies, and, you know, drafting policies, and somebody else may say, I don't like how she does it, you know, so there's going to be some conflict. But as a whole, I think it's going to carry the what the board's confidence is or concerns, and can go as just...
Do you want to take the collective feedback and average the scores? Would that be...
I can do that.
I think that might be useful for her.
You know,
There's only 5 of you. I can average 2, but either way.
Oh, yeah. It's our evaluation.
Yeah, I mean,
We should-
like I said, what I've done in the past, when I was a chairman of selectmen, is I would basically correlate it and pull through, whether it's a group thought, if the you know, and supply all the data, or if there's some differing opinion, put that in a summary sheet so that subsequently, you know, there's all the supporting data, which has all the information, but also a summary where you can basically summarize what's there. I mean, that's how I've done it in the past, and I can do it again if the board wants me to. But it's supplied with all those individuals.
I'm thinking in a different direction, and let's assume for the sake of argument that I'm biased against the superintendent.
Yeah.
And I do a really negative evaluation because of that bias.
Yeah.
If we do 5 individual evaluations, I don't think that's necessarily fair. So what I'd like to do or propose is that as individual board members, we score our own individual sheet. We convene the meeting in non-public, but for the purposes of discussing the evaluation, we may ask you to step out for that portion of the non-public meeting, and then collectively as a group, come up with a collective number or an average, and that becomes her official evaluation. So I'd like to look at the Word document that she gives me as my notes, and put my thoughts for notes for discussion in the actual meeting, but as a board, I think we can officially do a score sheet, and that becomes her official evaluation, if that makes sense. And what that does is it removes any potential bias from an individual member of the board and compensates based on that collective.
I think that makes the whole process more collaborative, too. I like that.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does. I guess
I
the
think
other
it-
question that I would have is that when you did vote to renew my contract, you also had included a 6-month evaluation.
Yes.
But let me clarify that intent, because I made that motion. That motion was similar to when we hired Brian Cisneros. It wasn't evaluation was the wrong word to use. It should have been a 6-month review of your wage, not a 6-month evaluation of your performance. So at that 6-month period, we could leave your wage where it is now as we voted to recommend it, or based on that $60,000 that we appropriated for merit increases, we may award a merit increase. But the purpose of that motion on that night wasn't for an evaluation on your performance, it was an evaluation of your wage. When I made that motion.
Yeah, and it's somewhat tied together, but I think, as Ruth Ellen, as you point out in your own contract, that our ability to break the arrangement is.
Well, it's mutual,
Right.
it's mutual agreement with 40 days' notice,
Right.
so.
So it's really that, yeah, I mean, that's kind of, that's in the contract, it's not
Right,
like.
I would have a contract through the end of the year.
Right.
But, you would need to at least let me know 40 days prior to June 30 that next year might not be the same address on my business card.
Does your contract run July 1 through June 30?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So, yeah, I'm okay with Tim's procedure going forward. Like I said, that's very similar to what we've done at the Board of Selectmen, and I am certainly able to get that document together. Well, it's a stretch for me.
So
I mean, I think we can,
I think you're looking to do it
Right.
together at the
Right.
table as opposed to
Everyone,
after your weekend.
as Tim recommends, everyone bring their own notes and fill it out, and then
This
collectively,
format.
yes,
in this format, and
Yeah.
then collectively we'll score it as a
collectively
board.
score through and discuss it out. Because somebody may bring up some discussion about something that they remember, and people could say, well, I thanks for bringing that up, or I disagree with that, so there's some of that
That'll
will
be
be
a short
flushed
meeting.
out. What's that?
There'll be a short meeting.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
So we need to have these ready for next week?
That would be great.
And you're going to communicate that with Joel?
I will,
Okay.
as soon as it gets online.
And tomorrow morning, can we get just the Word document so that we can
Yes.
play with it in Word?
Yep.
So I don't have to convert it.
I said, well, I think once we can complete that, then we can move forward to the goals for this coming year. And,
And some of those probably already need to shift because it's been a few months.
right,
I think some of them might have changed too, based on
Yes.
Right.
what we've done.
yeah, that's a whole nother discussion,
Yeah.
So, I'm gonna pull back about halfway here and say, these may be your goals, but ultimately this is your responsibility. Change these up as required, because those things will change as priorities change. But,
For next week's, again, tomorrow, for next week's folder, can you just, or in the next week's folder?
Next
Those
week's
aren't
folder's the
confidential.
10th.
Next week's folder, can you take the draft goals that you did way back when and just
Yeah.
push them back into next week's folder so we have them handy?
That's probably something I may not have seen.
You have
Possible.
access to, but it's buried back in the
it's buried.
sands of time. So we'll find them.
All right.
okay, anything else on that topic? Moving along, do we have any other new business?
Yes.
Yes.
Mary can go first.
Thank you. Old before beauty. Treasurer, district treasurer.
Yeah.
We have, believe it or not, we have a district job description for our district treasurer, which is an elected official. And I've brought this up before, and I need somebody to explain to me why that elected position has a job description when it's basically driven by RSA.
I believe, and I don't, it goes back before me, but I believe it was put together at a point when they were recruiting and trying to explain to people, here's what you might be doing. But
I think part of it too is because the RSA is extremely vague. There's not as much direct information in there as there should be. And the state admits that too.
That might be intentional.
I have a job description, district treasurer, dated June 3rd, 2019. It's not quite 2 years old.
okay, I was not here for that, but yes.
Oh, that's correct. Okay.
Well, why don't we set that to the policy committee for review?
We can, but, I mean, I guess Mary's point, your point is basically
We
it's
can
not
take-
required, or it should be rewritten to clarify, or at least try to assist what the RSA is? or-
Point is, it's not an
Deleted?
employee, it's an elected official, so it shouldn't be listed under job description, I think is what you're arguing.
You can't oversee them like you can an
Right.
employee.
Yeah, I mean, if this is the document that you put out when you're looking for somebody that wants to maybe do that job, I don't have a problem with that. But when it comes to duties, responsibilities, and things like that, you can put anything you want in here.
It goes back to the RSA.
And the RSA is going to supersede it anyway.
Right,
I agree.
correct.
Second thing on that was, did we ever get legal back from when our new treasurer, when her responsibilities end? Is it going to be election, or is it to the end of the normal treasurer's term? Think about it this way. If Mrs. Cardinal had not resigned, we would not be looking at a new treasurer until June 30th.
Correct.
Even if she, like, fast forward to next March, let's say she didn't run again, somebody else ran and
She would still be
won.
completing the fiscal
She
year.
stays through that. She stays until June 30th. Now, in her absence, and there actually are, I did with it, there's an RSA 197-24 that's actually designated as acting treasurer. And it also defines duties and responsibilities that the acting treasurer has, who takes over in the absence of your elected treasurer, and if and only if your deputy treasurer is not able to step up and take full responsibility. That's the situation that we're in now. So 197-24 talks about that as well. So I'm just feeling that we've got a little bit of, we may have some loose ends as far as this treasurer position goes, and I was kind of hoping that we could get some
Pull it
definition.
together?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was requested, unfortunately, it was requested along with two fairly complicated
Okay.
personnel issues, and I
Okay.
think that's the part that went to the bottom.
We
will
don't
pull that back
necessarily
up.
have to worry about it until we approach the March, so that Jessica knows, yeah, I'm staying
I
after
think-
March.
And I think that acting treasurer part is if there is no deputy treasurer, which at the time we had a deputy, we still have a deputy treasurer.
But she
Because
was
the-
unable to take the full position.
Right, if the treasurer can actually fire the deputy treasurer. And that and you have to have an acting treasurer, because that was our issue, was we didn't know who was gonna sign our next payroll.
Exactly.
The RSA allows for the appointment of an acting treasurer when the treasurer is temporarily incapacitated and we don't have a deputy treasurer.
Okay. But
You got your copy?
I guess how is that temporarily incapacitated?
Well, she resigned. So
Yeah,
that's,
right.
Incapacitated is.
that's done.
Right,
Yeah.
but I was referring to, is there clear legal description to that?
So if we did not have a deputy treasurer and,
What if we had a treasurer who just didn't feel like doing it?
Well, you could have a treasurer that's out of town, too.
Right.
and if we had no deputy, you would be able to appoint an acting treasurer to get us
Okay.
Through an
through
emergency,
that
through an emergency meeting.
spot, right?
And to answer your question, the temporary absence of your treasurer is by reason of illness, accident, absence from the state, or other cause that they become temporarily incapacitated or unable to perform the
Okay.
duties, and we don't have a deputy, we can appoint somebody to sign checks
Okay.
to get our application out.
Because you basically, you have
But
elected treasurer, you have appointed
Deputy treasurer.
deputy
Deputy.
treasurer, and there's a third position called acting treasurer.
Right.
So I have copies of all of it if people want to think about it. My second question to that was, our new treasurer, when we brought her on, did we do a criminal background check?
It's in process.
That's a no-no.
Not for an elected official.
You
an elected
you do
position.
you do
You don't do a
Alright.
background check on an
You
elected
do
official.
not do background checks on elected officials. Now, she is appointed, but when she was appointed by this board, she was awarded all duties, responsibilities as the person who she was replacing. So she's replacing someone that was elected. Was the elected person, did you do a criminal background check on the elected
I
person?
misunderstood. I thought it was the opposite way around. So I didn't know we were doing a background check. So I thought,
I believe she did, but I will,
right.
Okay.
I
So
misunderstood what your question was.
let me rephrase it. The original, the person that was elected, who has subsequently resigned, she was elected, was a criminal background check run on her.
Not to my knowledge.
And there should not have been, because she is elected.
Yeah.
So when she vacates that, what's the criteria that says, okay, she stepped aside, we've got a new person doing the exact same job, under the exact same RSA, but we're gonna run one on her? What's the difference? What's the defining factor? Is it because she was appointed as opposed to voted by the legislative body? Is that the difference? Because I don't see it.
Or are we just doing it because we've done it in the past? And I guess my question would be, what should we be doing? And are we doing what we should be doing, or was just doing something that we may have done in the past and felt we should do? I don't know.
So the resolution to that, sorry.
Motion that we direct the policy committee to draft a policy for procedures related to elected officials.
I'm good with that.
Okay, you're gonna have to clarify that for me a little bit. Elected officials as far as who?
So
Board
anyone-
members?
Correct. So
any elected officials who serve the district?
district officers, I think is the term used.
That would include the moderator, or include the clerk.
Yeah.
Right.
But I guess,
If they're, getting back to Mary's point earlier, if they're an elected position and the duties are listed, are directed under RSA, what's
we
this
don't
policy
need a
gonna
job
do?
Then the policy states that we're to follow the RSA. I don't think job descriptions are even necessary for elected officials if it's clearly stated in statute. I don't think there's anything more necessary, and I think if we go beyond the statute, we're exceeding our scope.
Well, one thing to Brian's point on the treasurer, maybe there's some additional information that needs to go with that for us to make sure that it points to what we need done
Right.
to clarify that, but not be stepping on to the RSA.
I think perhaps the job description piece could be, if it's a matter of semantics, it really should be, this is the duties of the position under RSA amplified, but not a job description as such.
Yeah, and the responsibilities do change from district to district. There are some treasurers out there that make all the deposits. There are some that reconcile all the checking accounts, and there's some that don't reconcile any checking accounts. They just, because all they're required to do by law is to write a report at the end of the year saying, I reviewed the processes and the accounts and everything looks fine.
And I think that's something as a board that the administration should bring forward to us on how we're going to handle that in the future, because I think that's going to be a huge, it changed when we changed financial managers back a couple of years ago. That changed, and I don't agree. I don't necessarily agree with the changes. But going back to the criminal record question that Josh was talking about, I don't believe elected officials are subject to any elected official is subject under our 197 to criminal record check backgrounds, because if you ran one on me and found I was convicted of murder, you can't remove me from office. Right. So I guess we're going to ask the attorney what is the term of the treasurer, and I think as long as we're going to ask that question, the second question is, are elected officials exempt from the RSA requiring background investigation? And I think the answer is going to be yes, but it's cleaner coming from the attorney than it is coming from us as a matter of policy saying we're not going to do backgrounds on each other. If it was done in the
past, I'm sure it has something to do with the financial aspect of the position, because you are controlling the funds of the district.
Well, right, which is, when you...
I'm not saying I agree with it, I'm just saying I wonder that's why that
when you
came
hear it, it makes sense as far as the person's going to be involved in money, it would make sense to do a background check. But if that goes against what elected officials have, so...
And the medium thread to this is we're talking elected officials. What changes when an elected official resigns, retires, becomes incapacitated?
And what should we do and what we can't do?
What are the upper and lower limits that we can put a potential replacement person through?
Makes sense.
As far as criminal record check, criminal background checks, in my opinion, the only person that would matter to would be a bonding company. Mm-hmm. But we're covered under, I can tell you that in 5 years, I never had a criminal background check done.
I know it.
Well, yeah, you could probably write it out.
I can tell some stories.
Yeah, I'm sure you could.
Our policy, I believe, states that our treasurer has to be bonded, doesn't it?
I believe it does.
I think my second concern to that would be...
By our policy, I believe our treasurer has to be bonded.
She is bonded.
Yes.
She's bonded under your blanket bond. The district has a bond, and the treasurer is actually bonded within that capacity.
Even though she's not an employee?
Not an employee, no. Well, this is what I was told, and
Okay, so we'll clarify. Yeah.
I took treasurer,
Questions
and I
on
said
top of
I have
questions
to,
now.
because it does say, the RSA does say that the treasurer will provide a bond. So I asked about that. I said, what are my responsibilities? Who pays for the bond? At that point, I was told, you're covered under the blanket bond of the district.
Okay.
So, might be something else to check.
Yeah. And
So if we have to spend $100 on a treasurer's bond or something, it's well worth it.
Okay.
If it is not, in fact, covered totally under that. And I totally understand the money thing, even just taking school lunch money down to the bank, $38, that person should be responsible for that. But my concern, I think, was that we may be treading into territories that we're not technically allowed to.
Understood.
We'll find out. Thank you.
But yeah, you raised some other questions regarding bonding. Are they currently covered under the bond? And if they're not,
It's kind of a slippery slope, because I have to go through a background check, but I have no authority to sign any checks in this district at all.
Exactly.
You guys have the authority. You sign the manifest, then the checks go to the treasurer. Treasurer signs the checks. I
And we're
just
not
put it on the
bonded.
manifest, and that's it. And that's
But
really where it goes.
you have to go through a background check, I think, as an employee under the RSA versus us being non-employees.
Right, but I mean, I'm not complaining about it. I'm
Yeah.
just saying that, my responsibilities.
Of course, they don't
require
get the
being a background
manifest without you.
check. Yeah, it's true.
Well, again, the difference there, I believe, is an elected versus employee. That would play into it. All right, sorry to drag that in, but it's
No, it's important.
It's kind of wondering.
Yep.
She is working out. She doesn't have anybody.
I brought her in last week for the sign one check.
Right. I mean, technically,
It was good.
she hasn't got anybody to train her. So the second part of this is going to be, are you going to discuss with her Are you going to go back to the way that it was when I was treasurer, in that she's
We've
an
had,
overseer?
We've had multiple long discussions, and we'll have another one this week, because I told her to kind of feel it out and just see what she feels comfortable with.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I don't.
I mean, it may be a mix
I
of,
don't want to have her jump into the fire on day one either. And,
Exactly.
And to be overwhelmed. You know.
and it may be a mix of the two. I mean, and I don't want to say that, but one of the things it talks about is, in the job description, it's a 2-hour job. It was 2 hour a week, or 2 hour a month, I forget. Yeah, when I did it, it was, I mean, I could extend it, but I can tell you in conversations with a previous treasurer that
That's not
that
the
person
case.
was spending 15+ hours a week because of the rigmarole that was set up and she was ordered to do. And that- I mean, there's got to be something in between.
I don't order them what to do. I'm like, whatever you feel comfortable doing, as long as you fulfill their RSA, I'm fine with it. And I'll explain to her how the manifest is. Of course, it's all going to change on July 1st. Manifest's going to look a little bit different with our new accounting system, but the process will be the same. So,
Okay, thank you.
it's two different manifests type of stuff.
Okay, anything else for new
Sorry.
business?
I have 3, but I'll let him go first.
I have 2.
Well, I've got none, so.
Yeah. You two more?
Go ahead, John.
Look at 842.
I got the first one. I motion that effective immediately, Farmington School District shall not mandate face coverings in the following instances. 1, outdoors. 2, by students playing in a sports game. 3, by vaccinated individuals. And 4, when in attendance of a meeting of the Farmington School Board. And this is in the folder as well.
Effective one.
Immediately.
Okay, so I did read this, Josh, and I guess my question is, your second line, by vaccinated individuals indoors or out. What if I'm a person that doesn't feel that it's safe for me to be vaccinated and I'm choosing not to be vaccinated? Either because I don't feel, for whatever reason.
You're saying, what if they want to choose not to wear a mask, and they don't feel it's safe to get vaccinated?
Well, right now it's saying that if, in your proposal, shall not mandate a face mask if you've been fully vaccinated.
Right.
But what happens if you have individuals that, for personal choice, do not want to be vaccinated or feel medically that they're at risk if they're vaccinated?
Then they will be covered by the change on June 30.
Which is our previous motion.
Correct.
So how are we going to police this to know whether or not those people who choose not to wear mask coverings are vaccinated or not? We're gonna have vaccination police come by?
And I didn't see this one because stuff got printed earlier for me, so
Right.
I'm just seeing this now.
So, and I bring this up is because, as of right now, everybody at risk had an opportunity to be vaccinated. Everybody what's the categories? There's been, I think we're down to just 18 and under. Everybody else has
16 and under.
has opportunity or has had opportunity to be vaccinated. So out
16
of
and
those
under.
populations, you have people who were in the high-risk category that chose not to be vaccinated. You have people in the lower risk categories that choose not to be vaccinated. So by this policy, we're saying you still have to wear a mask because you were not vaccinated.
And I guess my question is, I'm not requiring that people show me vaccination certificates, so I know, well, you should be wearing a mask, you shouldn't. I'm not asking anyone to pin it to themselves. Outdoors, we don't require, we give the kids mask breaks outside if they are clustered with mask on, guys, if they're right up close. We've already, if they're playing in a sports game, NHIA does allow, those that are out to be unmasked. Our kids who are on the playing fields now are not masked. Kids who are in the dugouts are supposed to be, but kids who are out on the field.
They require in the playoffs. NHIA.
Okay, and that's NHIA rules, that's not ours.
Right.
So if we say, this is our policy, but if they're gonna play, they still, when they go to those games, they're still gonna have to follow those rules or forfeit.
Right, and that's their choice to make.
Right.
Now, and the other discussion, isn't May 7th, the governor is removing the requirements of businesses to, I'm trying to think, I read that today. Basically leaving up to businesses
Whether or not
they're
require-
going to institute anything as of May 7th,
Yeah, it's-
right?
Right.
So how does this tie into that? I mean, so because in his May 7th change, which is 3 days away, it does not mirror this to say that you have to wear a face mask unless you've been vaccinated. So this would be, I know it's 3 days prior, but would be different than what the governor's changing for the state regulations.
I guess to follow that up with a question, it's been a while, but our reopening plan uses the state guidelines for precautions, correct? Originally, we talked about CDC, and then we changed that to go by the state
DHHS guidelines.
So when the guidelines change in 3 days, do our guidelines change in 3 days?
Well, it's DHHS guidelines, not just
Not the governor.
the state.
Okay.
Not that that's.
Mary?
We recently said that we were maintaining the mask mandate, or face covering mandate through the end of the school year? Are we,
Right, June 30.
right, June 30th. So is this, you're looking to,
This would be a change to that.
Right.
correct, okay.
The vaccinated individuals indoors are out. If we're looking at students, that would be only some of high school students, not all. And I guess my question is that, while, yes, vaccination means that should you contract, you're not likely to have as hefty a case. It doesn't mean that you cannot transmit. It doesn't mean that you are impervious to. And so to do away with a mask mandate when we still have the majority of the people in our buildings during the day, our student population, without having access to masks or to vaccines. While, there can still be transmission.
All right. I'm still not convinced that masks reduce rate of transmission.
And you are entitled to that opinion. There are others who disagree with you.
Right.
I mean, the CDC isn't even sure that masks reduce the rate of transmission
So,
by their own admission.
I mean, you bring up some points which I've heard in the media, saying, okay, you can get vaccinated, but you can still get it. And, all this stuff, I mean, a lot of this information will hopefully someday get solidified into some real information, not just medical hearsay.
Right.
Which is all that I feel it is medical hearsay. And if you get vaccinated and you can still get it and you can still transmit it, then what's the point of getting a vaccination if you're not immune to it?
That should you contract, the likelihood is much less that it's going to be a serious case.
Right, according to medical hearsay and your personal physical condition or immune system. So, I mean, we've got all these, all this protection that we're putting in people that if you can still get it and you can still give it.
And there are several who've gotten their shots and got a little card with it that said in 6 months you need another shot.
Right, so I mean, basically we're making requirements on treatments that are not proven yet to be effective or lasting. And requirements of telling what people to do with not enough concrete medical evidence to
One way or the other.
justify
But it
it.
makes people comfortable, Charlie.
People want to walk around with a mask on it, they're free to do so. It's a free country.
I guess I'll amend my motion to remove by vaccinated individuals indoors or out, and by students playing in a sports game when in adherence with NHIAA rules.
So this would not affect our current, well, potentially will not affect it. By that change, it would not affect our procedure for schools and staff for the rest of this year.
Outdoors, it can, because if this says no face coverings outdoors, that means that while students do get a mask break outdoors, if they are huddled together on the playground within distance, we are saying, hey, don't get in each other's faces, mask up.
So that's a change.
That would be a change.
Students playing in a sports game
You just
with
removed
his
that one, did
change
you not?
would be consistent.
I said, I added when in adherence to NHIAA rules.
Okay.
And if you take out the third line, when attendance at a meeting at the Farmington School Board, I'm okay with. I mean, the only thing in this, it doesn't talk about to try to maintain social distancing when available, but, I mean, that's considered.
I think the risk at this point is next to nothing outdoors. And even in this board meeting setting.
So Josh has amended his motion. Was there a second?
Second it for discussion.
Okay, seconded. The amended motion is seconded.
Can I just make a comment
Go
on the
ahead.
discussion? I'm looking at the reopening plan on page 9. Model 4, which is in person with restrictions, it says masks will be required per CDC guidelines for staff and students.
Okay, it is. Okay.
So alongside these discussions, if we're going to change policy, we may want to change the reopening as to what guidelines we're going to look at. And I've got a strong suspicion that CDC guidelines are going to be in place for an extended period of time. And we may want to amend that to state guidelines.
But should the time and place be do that as at the end of this year, before the start of next year?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm fine with the June 30th.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
you were
thought
looking
we
at
changed-
revisiting on the 7th of June.
I thought when we were reviewing this reopening plan, we had changed the references of the CDC to NHDHS guidelines.
That was in some discussion which never got finalized, right?
I don't believe it.
I'm looking at the August 17, 2020 meeting, and the title of the document is Final FSD Fall 2020 Reopening Plan.
Right. It's bullet point 1.
So I guess my question is do we have I guess at the end of June, we can decide whether our reopening plan is terminated at the end of that June?
No longer needed?
Or no longer needed, or do we need another one for September? I guess that's the time to have the discussion when we're going to have that review on what we talked about.
We do need a reopening plan for ESSER.
We need a reopening plan, but
Something
it
to the
doesn't
state.
need to be that.
Yes, right.
It needs to be a plan for what the fall will
I
look
could
like.
just say we're, no restrictions, we're all in.
And
The full
under this, Model 5 would fill that role.
Yes, it would.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay.
So getting back to the motion on the table, Mary, discussion?
I will wear mine until we no longer require the staff and students to. That's a personal choice. I personally feel that if I'm asking teachers and principals and people to do that, then I'm gonna respect that. I'm gonna do it myself. I also have personal reasons for wearing my own. There are a few things out there that would take me out and take me out very quickly. So until I'm at a personal level of comfort, I will still mask. So, but that's just me. I mean, the board decides that you want to go without masks in certain situations, that's fine.
I will say anecdotally, and I know that you've said, the mask piece, it's hard to tell perhaps with COVID. This year, we did not have the hit from the flu that we typically have, because usually by the time we're approaching February vacation, it can't come fast enough. We have people dropping like flies. We didn't have that this year because people were socially distanced, they were washing their hands every few minutes, and they were wearing masks. And I don't know that it was any one of those individual, but together, we didn't have the hit of the flu this year at all.
I will say that, are we affecting the future immunity of children by being too clean? Right, and eventually that question will have to be posed.
Understood. I just know that we didn't have a line out the door of the nurse's office this year.
But the other plug in the other system that we've been doing is Larry's staff has been doing some remarkable cleaning with the fuming and different stuff like that, which I think is a big percentage of why we haven't had that.
So getting back to the motion.
Can we reread the motion with the amendments on what you're proposing, Josh?
Sure. Effective immediately, Farmington School District shall not mandate face coverings in the following instances. Outdoors, by students playing in a sports game when in adherence with NHIA rules, when in attendance of a meeting of the Farmington School Board.
Can you consider a friendly amendment?
Sure.
Nothing will preclude a student, staff, or attendee from voluntarily wearing a mask.
Sure.
But isn't that given, shall not mandate?
Just want to be clear that, and I've said it before, going into next year, if we have a student or staff member that chooses to wear a mask, I think that we're not mandating it to them, but at the same time, I think we need to say that's your personal decision, and if that's what makes your comfort level be where you're at, I think we should allow that. And I think we should be clear in our correspondence that we're allowing that. And I don't think there's any intent of the board to say, no, you're not going to wear a mask within the building.
So to clarify, this would then say students would not have to wear masks outdoors at all beginning tomorrow.
Correct. And I'll accept the friendly amendment.
If I could think of one, I would. I mean, Ruth Ellen's point of, if we have children playing outdoors on the playground and not maintaining social distances, to me, that's kind of the sticking point of things I would disagree with, because we've set forth a policy till June of certain requirements, and that would be inconsistent with that. It'd be different if the children are able to maintain social distancing outside, but that would be tough to administer. Say, okay, wear your mask when you're less than 6 feet to a child. That's really going to send mixed messages.
And require probably quadruple staffing at recess.
Yeah, so that's my concern is the other ones, I think would work with what we have going till the end of June. But that one kind of clashes with what we previously said. That's my concern. And it's going to be a difficulty for the teachers to enforce, as Ruth Ellen just stated. So, any other discussion?
I guess my only discussion on the outdoors is I drive to this building almost every day, and the kids that are outdoors prior to school, I can't speak to recess, but prior to school, it's common to see students congregated without masks. It has been from the beginning. And we haven't had the outbreak, and I think at least at the high school level, you let the kids make the decision when they're outdoors. I think we set policy to the end of the year on the interior of the building, I'm fine with that. And I think our high school level kids are smart enough to say, we either wear a mask, we don't wear a mask, or we stay 6 feet away from our friends, but I don't think you're going to see that happening with the personality of our high school kids. They're a close-knit group of kids, and we haven't seen the outbreaks of the issues this year, at least with the numbers that I've seen, to say, you know, this outdoor congregation without masks is causing significant outbreaks in the community. I'm not opposed to outdoors making it voluntary, and I just wanted to throw that out.
Voluntary at the high school level or across the board?
I think you look at, you know.
I'll make a propose a friendly amendment, Josh, that outdoors is changed to outdoors, not, outdoors, no, shall not mandate outdoors, not during, not required outside of class time. So if they're outside during class, it's a requirement. If they're not in class.
Well, there are classes that take mask breaks outside.
Right.
But then you have a PE class that may be outside. They may do math outside.
Right.
But so you're saying recess, all bets are off.
No, I'm saying if that's school time, that's during school time.
Okay, but that's not considered a class, so that's why I'm trying to get the semantics part.
During school time,
okay,
that they would have to be consistent with our policy till June. If it's before school, it's after school, then it wouldn't be a requirement.
What about on the bus? Is that still considered school time? I know it's not officially outdoors, but just figuring if the masks all get doffed on their way to the bus, where are we?
That's a requirement we have till June. So I would add that to my friendly amendment. Josh doesn't have to accept it, but.
I think on the outdoors part, if they're outdoors as far as outside the building, I think the sun and the wind will take care of most of that. I don't think it's a risk. But as far as making it clear that on a school bus it's required, that's fine.
So you accept it half it?
Yes.
Okay.
I just know the implementation. If we have masks are off between door and bus, that bus driver is going to be put your mask on, put your mask on, put your mask on as they. So.
Right.
Just knowing that we're dealing with kids.
If it's a condition to board the bus, right? It's still a condition to board the bus either way.
True. Boarding buses just got slower.
Right.
Well, we have half the students we normally have, so. Or maybe.
No, there is no socially distancing on a bus at this point. They're fairly full.
Okay, any other discussion on the motion? Not hearing any. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'm going to oppose.
I'm opposed.
Tim? Pick one. Pick the middle. I'll get your fence to sit on. How's that? I don't know. What do you want?
I'll vote aye.
Okay.
Goes to
Motion fails. Joel should have been here.
It can certainly be brought up again.
Okay.
Next week.
Next week, that's fine. Make some changes.
Josh, you had another one?
I did. 1 second. Hold on, I lost it.
That one I printed it went in the folder sooner.
I revised it since then, sorry.
Oh, thank you. I'll look it up.
So, this one, I move that the following be adopted into policy. It is a policy of Farmington School District, the following anti-American subjects shall not be taught nor discussed with students by staff, nor shall any materials containing said subjects be provided. 1. Ibram Kendi's theory on anti-racism. 2. Critical race theory or any similar concept. 3. Any subject that espouses the belief that any race or ethnicity is inherently evil. 4. Any subject that espouses the belief that the United States is an inherently racist or evil country, or that the United States is systemically racist. 5. Any concept asserting that there is white privilege. 6. The New York Times 1619 Project or any similar concept. And that no program or service provided by Farmington School District be provided as a condition of race. And nothing in this policy shall be interpreted to prohibit the education of students on American history. The title of the policy shall be Anti-American Concepts Prohibited and lettered at the discretion of the superintendent.
So this is
What do you
going to the
mean,
policy
lettered?
committee?
What do you mean lettered by the?
The letters that go on the headings of a policy, basically he's telling me to find some alphabet soup to throw at it.
Right, like JICD.
Oh, okay. So I got a couple questions. First one is the New York Times, the 1690 Project, which I'm familiar a little bit with. That was not prepared by them. That was just listed by them.
The 1619 Project?
Yeah.
I don't know if it was prepared by them.
I don't believe they're the authors of that document or that theory.
I think they put it together, so it was collaboration under them.
I think
Okay.
there may have been some sponsorship. I don't know that it was
Okay.
authorship.
I just didn't. Yeah. And I guess to back up to my first question, how many other districts, if you know of any, have adopted similar policies regarding education content?
For this has mostly been handled at the state level. So states, Idaho's one of them, are adopting laws banning this as content in education. New Hampshire's, I think they have legislation pending, but we are within our rights to ban these topics.
So I guess my next question, Ruth Ellen, is based upon what this drafted, are there any situations that we're currently, any of our curriculum that this would apply to?
Currently, this is not these topics are not topics of curriculum. I think one of the things, if you are discussing current events, to say that the words, critical race theory couldn't be said together, I think understanding that it exists, not necessarily espousing it, but in the exchange of ideas, acknowledging that there are those who believe this, not saying that you should, there are those that believe that. I would hesitate to say this can't be part of any discussion. I would say it should never be proselytized. It should not become, this is what we are indoctrinating students in by any means. But I think to fail to acknowledge its existence sometimes elevates it to
A higher
level
revered status?
well, since we can't talk about it, we need to go find out about it.
So I guess on that point, in some of these bullet points Josh has, any subject that espouses the belief. So,
I mean,
I certainly agree with the concept, but I do hear your points about banning it from some discussion of saying, well, here is some beliefs that's current in society, as far as discussion, but I don't know.
I mean, and you've put in there, it doesn't mean that you can't educate students on American history.
Right.
I mean, certainly, if we're discussing Nazi Germany, you would have to have a discussion of the ideology to truly place it within a framework. It doesn't mean that I am suggesting that anyone should adopt the ideology.
Right.
But certainly there needs to be an understanding to understand what it is that created the conditions for that to happen. And I think to say that we're going to take out things that there have been conditions that have created ideologies here now that we may not agree with. But I think the recognition of those conditions and the result of those conditions can also lead to helping that not become a repetitive process. I understand what you're trying to do. I think sometimes it can have an unintended consequence.
Right. So in the line that says nothing in this policy shall be interpreted to prohibit the education of students on American history, nor shall the issues or topics listed be prohibited from.
It doesn't say that. Does it say the topic shouldn't be?
No.
No,
He's thinking out loud
Yeah,
on
I'm
that.
thinking out loud.
Okay. I was just making sure I didn't miss the update.
Right.
Sorry.
The one that's in process.
That's okay.
The one you just broke?
Can we take it as a first read?
Well, it hasn't been to the policy committee.
Right?
Let's, I'll amend my motion to send it to policy committee as a draft.
I'll second that.
Discussion. You know, I agree with having some language here, but it's got to work. Because it certainly needs not to be prohibited from general discussion. But I don't want to see some of these beliefs that people are pushing to become mainstream in our educational system that are not there now.
Yeah.
You know,
No student in Farmington should be told that they are privileged because they're white or be forced to apologize, and that's what these theories are espousing.
Can I just throw out an additional comment while it's going back to committee on kind of an outlook or, maybe a statement? I think at some point in time, as a board, we have to say all our students are equal or are created equal. You read in the news today about a lot of the anti-Asian sentiment that's out in the community. Well, that shouldn't be tolerated in our environment.
Right.
So as we look at some of these processes, can we simplify through policy? And I'm just putting it out as a process under our discrimination policies or our educational policies. Is there a way to say that everybody that walks into our school as a student, visitor, or employee is considered on equal ground, regardless of your religion, your race, your thought process, your elected status? I mean, we're all the same, and I think that's kind of the message that.
Yeah, and maybe it's kind of because I understand you're kind of taking this from a curricular piece. And I think maybe it's, because we value the contributions of all and recognize the right to participate safely in community for all, we will ensure that our curriculum does not do X, Y, and Z. And maybe that type of blanket statement could include this, but also make sure that those other pocket areas don't go, it shouldn't be this group is favored over that group, no matter which the groups are. It should be equal status. And there are going to be competing needs between groups sometimes, but those need to be recognized and met as best we can. It can't be, well, it's your group this week.
Right.
Next week, it might be your turn. It needs to be, we recognize that everyone has that right to participate fully and safely and in an environment, in a community that recognizes that importance of difference as opposed to trying to homogenize. So I think those are maybe other pieces that could get blended in. I can look to see if there are some other statement pieces that you might want to look at for language.
Okay.
I like where it's going, I just don't think we're there yet.
Yeah, there's only one group here, Ruth Ellen. Farmington residents and Farmington
Students.
and students. That's it.
But we do have some Farmington students who might not be residents, but yes. Yes.
And, we need to consider that, I consider that group as a whole, period. Everyone has different upbringings, race, color, creed. This is America. People want to say it's trying to label us, telling us it's not what it's been for the last 200 years or 300 years. We used to be known as a melting pot, and now everyone's trying to say we're not. Okay. History has shown totally different. This latest thing that Tim mentioned was the anti-Asian sentiment. I have, in my time on this earth, I have never, ever seen that in this state of New Hampshire. And I don't think I've seen that anywhere else that I've been firsthand witnessing. So, and I have some good friends that came here as adulthoods that couldn't even speak English,
And
from different parts of Asia, and successful businessmen to this day. And they came here in their 40s and
I
didn't
ran
speak a
into
word of
it
English.
once in high school.
As far as this not being the land of opportunity, I think there's plenty of cases where people who want to advance themselves can.
Absolutely.
So at this point, the motion is to move it to policy committee. Any other discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor?
Aye.
Next, Ruth Ellen had 3. Go ahead, Ruth Ellen.
Okay. And actually, yeah, it might end up being 4, but I'll try to make them quick. The fastest one, use of grounds, just making sure, kind of more of a public service announcement, as people are using playgrounds, Henry Wilson, Valley View, on the grounds, understood that this is a community space, but we do ask that, particularly as the weather gets warmer, number 1, if you walk your dogs, clean up after your dogs. Number 2, if you are using the playgrounds, use the equipment for its intended purpose. We do have cameras on the playgrounds, and there has been some report of some misuse of our equipment. And
Such as?
people who are not of the age group for which the equipment is intended, using the equipment in ways that it's not intended to be used. Standing on swings, slamming them into one another, trying to break chains, that sort of thing.
Okay.
So there are other ways to entertain yourselves.
Not
Please
correct
don't-
use of the equipment.
Yes, please don't break our equipment.
Is this like during the nighttime or
Evenings when people come up, weekends, vacation weeks.
trespassing?
It's not, well, no, it's not trespassing, particularly Henry Wilson, because that's public ground because of the land use trust and all of that good stuff. But I just ask for people to be respectful of the grounds, and if we need to start watching tape, I can do that, but it's like watching paper.
So, do we have any signage?
There has been signage, and I will talk with Larry about perhaps beefing up some of that signage.
I mean, maybe we need some signage to remind people how,
And
what
the
they
age
should be
groups,
acting.
and the age groups for which a
Yeah.
particular structure is intended.
yeah, I mean, I wanted to keep it to be, is used by the public as much as possible, but they need to be using it correctly
Right.
and not damaging. I mean, it may get damaged unintentionally, but not trying to intentionally damage.
Right, right. So that was my fast one. Next one, I think will be relatively quick, but I just wanted to make you aware of a change. The juniors prom will be the first one, and they are looking to change their location from the football field to the quad up in here for a couple of reasons. One, access to electricity right here through the building. 2, they can open that door right there in the cafeteria and have access to the restrooms without having to work around porta potties. But since it had been officially approved for the football field, I am telling you they are officially requesting a change of venue.
So you need a motion for that?
I don't know that I necessarily need a motion if you're fine with that.
I'll make a motion to approve the
Okay.
change.
Second.
Okay.
Any discussion?
Aye.
Not hearing any, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. I don't know yet if the seniors are going to do likewise. They are still debating whether that's, but
I'll make
make
a
a-
motion to allow the seniors to make the same change if they request it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
thank you. Soccer co-op, you have in your folder, and that went up late, that was my fault today, the decision from the NHIAA in regard to the co-op. They agreed that, yes, we could do that, but they're not permitting us to stay in Division 4. The agreement with the board was contingent on staying in Division 4, so
So I'm going to make a motion to post it as an agenda item for the next meeting to allow and alert everybody involved that it'll be discussion for the board,
Okay.
and that the board will look forward to their feedback to make a potentially a decision. I mean, right now, our decision would be no. So based upon what now we've asked the question, what they've said, I'd like to open it back up to everybody involved to say,
Okay, we can live with that or we can't.
we can't. Because I'm not an affected person in this discussion, but.
And they
I-
need the advice in advance of the council meeting scheduled for the 13th. So if
Right.
you address it on the 10th, we're just under the wire.
Right.
So,
So is there a second?
We'll second that.
Any discussion? Not hearing any, all in favor?
Aye.
okay.
So please get the word out to anybody, public or staff, that
Okay.
we'll be discussing it.
And then the last thing I had was the calendar.
A calendar.
So what I have highlighted in yellow are the changes that are from the last calendar that you had seen. You were looking at having the PD days, the 5 professional development days as opposed to the parent conference days. Those professional development days have been moved from November 23rd to November 29th so that it's not right in front of a holiday weekend, it's on the other end. And the same with the March PD day, it's placed after the February vacation.
Is that in the folder, or you look it up?
I handed you a copy.
Yeah,
It's okay.
sorry.
I did move, because of the proximity to vacations, I did move 2 of the early release days to the following week and took away the early release day in March because to move it back any further, where it was going to put it too close to the moved vacation, and to put it into the 18th starts to raise havoc with spring testing, AP testing, SAS testing for the lower grades. So I just took that one out. In talking with the Teachers Association with this, the agreement is that parent conferences are a professional obligation, and those will be scheduled at the building level as best meet the needs of those levels, but it is agreed that that is a professional obligation, that teachers will be meeting with parents, but it will not be necessarily a separate scheduled day. And that time has gone back to professional development.
Motion to approve.
Passes 4-0.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else for public?
Was there any public participation?
Or any other new business, from the board? Not hearing any, I'll go to public participation. Our last opportunity for the night. If we have anybody still on the line that would like to speak to the board. Jen?
No one in the chat has indicated they'd like to share anything with the board, and I did post the question again twice just now.
Okay.
If you would like to share something, you can unmute yourself at this time. Oh, and I do not see anything in the chat still.
Okay, thank you, Jen. So I'm going to, well, our next meeting is next Monday, May 10th. And
You also have a workshop scheduled for part of that time. Do you want
Yes.
that to be first or?
Did we decide, I mean, the workshop is going to be pretty extensive on
Learning
budgetary, is it
management
not?
right?
Huh?
That's on the workshop.
It's on the ESSER spend out.
The ESSER spending, budgeted to take the 5.7 million and try to come up with some type
Right.
of budgetary recommendation. I think that's going to be a long meeting.
Right. So, I mean, you're going to say what else needs to be on there, and
Well, you've put some things from tonight to next week already. You've put the sports to next week.
right, we'll have to handle that first
Yep.
thing.
And RFPs,
The RFPs for next week,
could be two of them.
for the doors, for the
Yeah, that should be quick.
laptops.
That's quick, yeah.
Laptops, generator.
the generator, which are also more or less part of the ESSER
Right.
discussion as well.
Okay. So moving along, we got manifest to sign tonight, and then we have, by my list, 4 non-publics. So at this point, I'll make a motion to go on non-public under RSA 91A:3 to A, B, and C, nominations and resignations.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Thank you.